Sally Sarah there, and as we've heard, the United States forces finally found the al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden not in the rugged mountains of Afghanistan's border, but in a $1 million compound in an upscale suburb with his youngest wife. The home is in Abbottabad, a town about 60 kilometres north of Islamabad. It's relatively affluent and home to many retired members of Pakistan's military. Imtiaz Tyab joins us now from Abbottabad. Thank you for joining us. Give us some reaction as to how people feel about the world's most wanted man being found in their neighbourhood.
Well, certainly when we've been speaking to a number of people, and when we spoke to some people this morning, they said that in the early hours of Monday morning they heard a few explosions, and then the sky, they say, turned orange. Now, they of course initially thought it was a military exercise because, of course, Abbottabad is close to a very well-known military academy here in Pakistan. But when they woke up in the morning and heard the news that literally on their doorstep, literally one of their neighbours was Osama bin Laden, that he was captured and killed in an affluent house, many of them expressing surprise and shock and even bewilderment.
There are some questions today about Pakistan's role in all of this. Apparently it was a very secretive affair from the US side, and there are questions about whether Pakistan was forthcoming with intelligence it had prior to this. How is that being read on that side of the border?
Well, it's interesting. On the one hand, you have people who say that the Pakistani authorities should actually be a bit embarrassed that they weren't involved in this assault, that they weren't involved in the operation with the United States to take down the world's most wanted fugitive. And yet, on the other hand, you have some people who are arguing that in some ways this almost is precisely the way the Pakistanis would want this to play out, because they didn't want to be seen to be involved in an operation which brought down the al-Qaeda #1, which brought down an Islamic militant, for lack of a better word, and in some ways they wanted to distance themselves. But beyond all of that, there have always been many questions about Pakistan and whether Pakistan was serious about taking out extremists, indeed people like Osama bin Laden and other high-value targets. So many questions are being asked here and very few answers, unfortunately, at the moment.
Imtiaz, there were images, people celebrating outside the White House overnight and certainly on the streets of New York, images that were beamed around the world. How have they been received in Abbottabad and in Pakistan?
Well, what's interesting is that although Osama bin Laden, the world's most wanted fugitive, has been caught and killed here in Pakistan, we have not seen any protests in support, or we haven't seen any protests in celebration of this fact. In fact, what we're largely seeing is life pretty much carrying on as normal, even though people here in Abbottabad have expressed disbelief and bewilderment about the fact that Osama bin Laden lived in this town and indeed was killed in this town during a U.S. operation. Many are simply going about their daily business. You see school children walking not very far from where this U.S. operation took part. Again, this is an affluent neighbourhood, so many cars are driving up in the roads as normally. So really things generally seem quite normal. But one thing I can tell you, we are hearing reports that in Charsada, which is in the Swat Valley, which is just north of here, that there has been a bomb explosion which has been close to a police base. Now what we're hearing is that 4 people have been killed in this explosion in Charsada, but we don't know whether or not this was in response to the news that's coming out or simply part of the fact or part of the uncertainty that grips so much of Pakistan today.
I imagine authorities are indeed preparing for perhaps what may be a spike in violence given today's developments.
Absolutely. I mean, the Pakistanis have long said that they are on high alert, especially when it comes to this sort of thing. But one would imagine the fact that Osama bin Laden has indeed been captured, despite the fact that the al-Qaeda has denied the fact that Osama bin Laden has been captured, one would imagine that retaliatory attacks will certainly be on the increase. Pakistan is a target. In a statement released by the Pakistani authorities, they have acknowledged the fact that they are a target from al-Qaeda fighters, a fight that they have lost out of any country in the world. They've lost the most people to, 5 5,000 soldiers, 5,000 Pakistani soldiers have been killed in clashes with militants, with extremist groups, and indeed around 30,000 civilians have lost their lives, either caught in the middle or in areas where these clashes have been taking place. So Pakistan has lost a lot of blood, more than most, or rather any country in the world. So one would imagine the news that Osama bin Laden has been captured here, the news that Osama bin Laden was indeed killed here by an operation carried out solely by the U.S., one would imagine they're certainly worried that they will be the target of more attacks.
All right, Imtiaz Tyab in Abbottabad in Pakistan, where Osama bin Laden has been killed over the weekend. Thank you for your time and thank you for your analysis.